Welcome to the Jewish Education Experience podcast with your hosts, Yasmina and Ari, who will be uncovering gems of wisdom with Jewish educators from around the world.
To our audience, thank you so much. We really appreciate your support, and we appreciate you sharing our podcast with others also. Please consider supporting our podcast financially by contributing via Zelle, jewisheducationpodcast@gmail.com, or by joining our Patreon community, www.patreon.com/Jewish Education Experience Podcast. And to all of you Jewish educators and students of Jewish education around the world, chizchu ve'imtzu. May you be strengthened and encouraged in your holy endeavors.
Our esteemed guest is Rabbi Daniel Lewin, Lewin. Rabbi Daniel Lewin is a musmach of Yeshiva Chofetz Chaim, the Rabbinical Seminary of America. In addition to his semicha, he took courses offered there on Jewish education with Rabbi Michal Rottenberg and Rabbi Yoel Kramer. He has a bachelor's in computer science and a master's degree in general and special education from Torah College. He enjoys working in Jewish schools and presently works as a Keriah Rebbe, focusing on reading skills with elementary school students in Talmudical Academy of Baltimore. As a general studies special education teacher, working in Talmudical Academy High School through the Penn, Maryland State Program, and as a special educator for adults in the Gesher LaTorah program of the Center for Jewish Education program of the Jewish Federation. He enjoys working with students across the lifespan and focuses on skill-based learning, as well as sharing the fundamentals of Torah values, philosophy, and Middot, character development. He can be reached at Rabbi Daniel Lewin at gmail.com.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being with us here today. Can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you began your journey in education?
Sure. So a lot of it started actually with Rabbi Gewirtz from Harrisburg.
Oh, wow.
So, so he was
a former guest on the podcast, by the way.
Okay, great. So, he's the one who guided me towards yeshiva. So,
okay, because you went to the Yeshiva Academy here.
I actually did not go to the Yeshiva Academy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is my last year at high school, actually, and I was in public school, and he directed me to Or David in Eretz Israel. I used to go to his house about every Shabbos in my senior year in high school. So he directed me towards Or David, which is the yeshiva in Eretz Israel, which is got geared towards people either with a weaker background, or I'd say like people with a weaker background. From there I went there for 2 years. And after, gaining some skills in learning Gemara and some other skills, I went to the Yeshiva in Milwaukee for 3 years, which really helped me develop a derech of learning, a way of learning. And from there, I went to Yeshiva Chofetz Chaim in Forest Hills, which is their. So the way it works is, which is a branch of Chofetz Chaim in New York, and that was the main branch. So there, I got to learn from under Rav Henoch Leibowitz, Zatzal, who's the Rosh Yeshiva, and there I really, gained really a lot in terms of skills and learning, and actually one of the big things the yeshiva emphasizes is actually going out and teaching. So, and Rabbi Gewirtz, which I mentioned earlier, was also from Chofetz Chaim, so I was kind of following his footsteps. And once I was there, eventually, I did get a master's in computer science, and then after I got married, I moved to Chicago, and I learned in Tells there. I learned in Skokie. So was involved in, I guess, being other other ways of learning, approaching things. But eventually we moved back to New York. When I moved back to New York, Chofetz Chaim had moved from Forest Hills to Kew Garden Hills. And there, I was in Kollel there for many years. And I built some nice relationships with some of the, a lot of the yeshivas I went to, I developed a nice relationship with the Rebbeim, just to name a few, in Or David, the yeshiva there, Rabbi Gronowski, who I'm still in touch with, and in Kew Garden, at Witz, there was Rabbi Zakai and Rabbi Roush and Rabbi Rennert, who I'm still very close with, who actually advises me still on different things, even involved in teaching. And in Forest Hills, some of the Rebbeim, I developed a close relationship. There's a Rabbi Dr. Goldman who also gave me advice, and Rabbi Samuel and others. Eventually, I got a master's also at Torah, but not in Flatbush. This was actually in Forest Hills. So there I went and got a master's in regular and special education. It helped that I had a bachelor's already. So then it took me about 2 years, and including in that, I also, as part of that program, you go and you student teach in different schools. So one of the places that I went was called YCQ, which is, I think it stands for the Yeshiva of Kew Gardens. And I'm not sure about that, so I have to check that out. But it's called YCQ. Oh, no, the Yeshiva Central Queens, that's what it is. Which makes more sense because Kew Gardens is with a K. I studied under some of the teachers there. And I was also an assistant teacher. I studied. This was kind of on my own, but I wasn't paid, but I studied as a sort of like I was a student not a student teacher. I was a teacher's assistant for a while at it's called Hank, and I gained a lot there. And eventually, once I got my master's and I got licensed to teach in New York, eventually I started doing they call it P3 there, but basically what it is the city pays you to go to sort of be a resource room for schools that don't have it. You can also do it in the home. And so I worked in different schools in Brooklyn. And the youngest I did work with some preschool kids. I worked with some elementary school kids, and I worked with middle school kids. So it was nice being able to sort of help them.
Well, it definitely sounds like you know what you're doing. Fun never stops as an educator, right?
Right.
So the next question is, if there's any educators that you particularly admire. I mean, you mentioned a few there. Is there one in particular you want to talk about?
I mean, the two actually that are coming to my mind, and one of them I didn't mention yet. One is, of course, Rabbi Gewurtz, and one of them is Rabbi Zaidel. So Rabbi Gewurtz, who I mentioned, I think, just is the, so from him, I got to see him more as like a Rebbe, I did learn some Torah from him, definitely. And I didn't see him like in an official, let's say, in his official job as he works in the day school there. but he did definitely took some classes with Gemara with him, and just like seeing how he handles himself in his day-to-day life, and just how he is, that's kind of like a good role model for any educator.
It's such an important part, isn't it, to see how he actually acts?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. He's very humble. He's very patient. Considerate. Tremendous midos.
Right.
So and I think that's why he's so successful.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you have to know what you're doing. You have to know you have the skills of a mechanic, which he's definitely, very talented at. But he also he's a mensch, Right. You learn almost from him by watching him,
Right. I guess I have to ask you, with the COVID stuff, what are you guys doing there? Are the students wearing masks? Are you wearing a mask all the time?
So
how's that affecting the education component? Are you guys on Zoom?
So when COVID first started out, we were doing everything virtual. So all those challenges of trying to give over information to students over the computer.
It's not ideal, right?
It's definitely not ideal. But I think I think we made the best of it, and I think certainly students still gained. Right now, we're all in school with masks, except for some students are, if you get quarantined, or sometimes the teacher gets quarantined, and then they're teaching over Zoom. At this point, we're all in school, and the school has rules: wearing masks, social distancing. They have they put up plexiglass, so
everybody's managing okay with that.
Yeah. Again, everything's not ideal, but it's better than it's better than virtual.
Right.
Manage. You do the best you can. Still have to make connections with the students. You still have to, think how you're going to teach and assess your students. So it's in a way it's the ssame thing. It's just you have to figure out how to sometimes how to reach your students in a different way, whether it's using, some a lot of teachers will use their face, but to give over information, but you have to keep in mind that, well, they can't see part of your face is covered,
Right, exactly.
So that's really the challenge. And then sometimes some classes, I haven't had so much of this challenge, but some classes are teaching to students in the classroom and over Zoom at the same time, which is its own challenge,
Right. All right. Well, anyways, we're jumping around here, so I apologize. I interrupted you in my own question about you were talking about the educators that you admire. I think you were still talking about Rabbi Gewirtz.
Right. So, but okay. So I think though I kind of got the point in terms of Rabbi Gewirtz, just gaining from he's such a good role model just to watch him, how he behaves, besides how he teaches, but just how he conducts himself. So I think that's what I got from Rabbi Gewirtz.
Mm-hmm.
Now from Rabbi Zaidel, who kind of was, so I didn't mention this before, but I worked in New York at a place called Kulanu, which is a special education school in Cedarhurst. It's a high school, has a middle school with two. And he was my supervisor there, and I really just learned a lot in terms of working, especially with that population, about how to conduct oneself, how to approach things, how to approach students differently, and really, I think I really learned a lot in terms of, from his approach, which was he was very good at knowing when to be hands-on and when to be hands-off, and letting me learn things and letting me try different things, and so and like he was very good in terms of when he would critique me, I should do this a little bit differently, I should do that, and I got to watch him also, in action and how he dealt with the students. So I feel like he was like a good role model of how to teach the students, but also somebody who really taught me, who really gave me sort of the actual training, especially in special ed, how to deal with the students.
Okay, so what percentage of the students that you're with would you say are special ed?
Currently the students that I have that are special ed. So currently I have a position. I work at Talmudical Academy in Baltimore, and I work in the elementary school in the morning, and there I do Keriah, but I'm doing Keriah with all the with students, not necessarily with special needs. This year I'm doing Keriah with the second grade and fourth grade, and I'm doing everybody in the classroom, whether or not they have special needs.
So Keriah meaning reading in Hebrew?
Yes, Hebrew reading. In the afternoon, I work in the afternoon. I work in the high school, and that's when I do special ed to help them with their general studies. And mostly the most that people need help in is actually math. So
I guess you can help them with that, can't you?
What? Yes. So I could help. Yes, definitely I can help with that. I've training up to calculus 2, so I'm able to help them with math. But I'm mostly teaching either pre-algebra, algebra, or geometry.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So I do help some students with English. So these students, I would say, in terms of percentage, obviously there's a lot more elementary school students that I'm working with, but in terms of like dividing my time, it's probably a little bit more with the elementary school than with the high school. With the high school, it's a lot fewer, but it's actually more hands-on,
Right. So it's kind of interesting because it's like special education. I mean, so this is the education podcast here. We think all education is special, but even just the word education is kind of hard to define. Like, so how do you define education?
So how would I define education? So I would define education sort of as in its simpler form, in its simplest form, is kind of is finding what the child needs to learn, and finding a way to reach the child and teach them the information. That's really its simplest form.
So you're saying the child, you have to figure out what they need.
Yes. Right.
And then you're saying it's more about the way that you teach it to them.
I think it's. I think that has a lot to do with it. In terms of each child has each child is different. Each student, each adult is different too. I work with it. You mentioned I work with adults on Sundays.
Oh wow.
I have a special ed on Sundays. I teach special ed for adults, and that's terms of Jewish education, and there the focus is more on making them really enjoy Judaism.
So sorry, is that like kind of like Hebrew school, but for adults that have special needs?
It's different than maybe what you think of Hebrew school.
Okay.
I guess you could look at it that way, but it's more of a way to I guess maybe Hebrew school is this too. I don't know. I don't know about Hebrew school. I know about Hebrew school from when I was growing up, so I guess I view these two different things differently.
Okay. But you never taught in like a typical like Hebrew school.
I never taught in let's say I never taught in what do you call like a Hebrew school where kids come either after school or on Sunday.
Right. It sounds like you've really been with students from like more traditional background. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And
So then, I mean, this is the real meat and potatoes here. How do you talk about God then with, and obviously you teach with different age groups. So how does it differ, with the different age groups you teach, if it changes? I don't know.
Yeah. I would say that it really depends. Again, like we said, right? It depends on, if it's all about, reaching the student and each student's different, then the way you, besides the grade and the age and their level of learning, right, depends on the student, But in general, with elementary school kids, you want to make sure that you're very positive. I say with everybody, you have to make sure you're very positive.
Right.
But you want to give over that Hashem loves them and cares about them, and you want to really be very positive with, you don't want to scare them at all. You're more concrete.
So do they ever ask you things like what is God or who is God or like technical questions like that?
They can sometimes ask. It's hard to know when they ask a question that you might take one way.
Right.
It might mean something else. But they will sometimes ask these kinds of philosophical questions. Let's say, why do bad things happen to people? Something like that.
Is that something they ask?
They could.
Yeah.
Something like that. So first of all, you have to be honest, right? You don't want to give them an answer that is wrong.
Right.
And you also don't want to give them an answer that scares them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much better to either say, I don't know, or I'll get back to you, than to come up with an answer that might be wrong or come up with an answer that will scare them for elementary school kids.
Uh-huh.
And then again, elementary school is a wide range. You have first through fifth. So
Right.
fifth graders you can have like a little bit of a more intelligent conversation with them,
Uh-huh.
And then, and sometimes my high school kids bring up certain things. So since I'm teaching general studies, the first thing I tell them, I'm not your Rebbe,
Uh-huh.
But if they feel comfortable to ask, I will definitely discuss different hashkafa things with them.
Uh-huh.
And it's all the caveat, you can ask your Rebbe. In my Sunday job, so I'm working with special ed adults. Again, it's very positive, focus on Hashem loves them, and Hashem's proud of them, which I focus on with the elementary school kids too, like Hashem's proud of them. That's really the sort of, you want to give over really any age, you want to give over being very positive, because this is going to be their connection, to Hashem, what could be more important, that they feel good about themselves, they feel good about Judaism, so really the more you can do that with any age,
Mm-hmm.
but especially with the younger kids. And I'd say my Sunday group with adults, you that's what you really want to do,
So is there like a range, let's say, with the students you have on their backgrounds, or are most of them sort of from like the same like community?
Oh, there's all different backgrounds.
Yeah. I guess I'm asking because I'm wondering, like, if you notice if there's a difference with the student's family, like how much of their family influence is gonna, because are they generally just basically they believe what their parents believe and they like absorb what they learn at home?
I would say, like, I don't always know exactly their family's level of observance or not. Certainly once you get to high school, it could be less important. It's still important, but like then they're already kind of, they have their own mind, so like they think certain things, and sometimes they've had trouble in school, so they sometimes have issues. So that's actually, it's very important to also develop skills, because students who have good skills, there is a correlation actually to having good skills and, having a good connection to Hashem. That's actually why being involved in Keriah in the morning is so important.
Huh. Sorry, why is that?
What?
Why? What's the reason?
Because if they feel like they're being successful in school,
right,
learning, then they're going to have a good feeling about Judaism and Hashem and everything.
Interesting. So yeah, it's a good idea to have, right, start the day off with some success.
Right.
Sure. What do you think is your biggest challenge that you face as an educator?
I think my biggest challenge I face as an educator, I definitely gave that one some thought. And I think at least one of my biggest challenges, it's hard to pinpoint your biggest challenge, but really it's trying to figure out how to reach the children, finding ways to teach them, make sure that they're getting what they're supposed to be getting. A lot of thought goes into that.
For sure.
How do you stay motivated as an educator?
So I think one of the ways that you stay motivated with an educator is to you look at things that you've been successful at, So one thing I actually was talking to a parent who I had their student in high school a few years ago. They were very happy with what I had done, helped with their son. Their son is now in yeshiva and he's taking courses in college and, being successful. So I got a call from a former student who was actually, from high school, who was actually one of my most difficult students. Gave me a call and they just asked me if they thought they were smart enough to go to college.
Wow.
First of all, I felt good that they felt a connection to me, that they could call me after a few years, and I felt good that I told them yes, definitely, and it felt good to feel that they matured. They actually apologized, and I apologized. I said I didn't have any hard feelings, but I was glad, you see them grow up and mature, and sort of the fruits of your labors. And that you have a connection. I still have a connection when I led a davening class. That I have a connection to a kid who's now in middle school. So, so I think, just having, watching the students grow and have a connection and what you can feel you've been a positive impact on their lives. I think that's what keeps me going.
Does that happen to you often, where you'll have a student come back to you, or somehow you interact with them again and they just tell you how much of a difference you made? Or
so that doesn't happen that often, but it does happen that I'll meet former students and they'll be happy to see me. That's also something. The happy connection, I feel good about that too.
Right.
So
we're loving the positivity here.
Yeah, definitely.
So what advice would you give to new educators who are just beginning their journey?
So the advice, I think, so would be really to find good role models, and listen. If you're new, you should really, even if you have your own ideas, you should be listening to people who have experience.
Right.
And so have really good role models and get as much sort of training as you can, especially in the classroom, as you can, because that's really where whatever you can learn in a classroom until you're actually in whatever you can, let's say, learn like a college course or in any other course you take on education, until you're actually really in the classroom, right? It's very hard. You have to be able to take what you've learned and actually put it into action. Definitely. So I think those two things, and be positive. I guess the other thing, be positive. Don't worry if you mess up, especially if you're inexperienced or whatever. Don't worry, it happens. Kids misbehave. It's okay. Kids are kids. Don't take it personally.
Right. Hey, do you have any advice for putting it into action, like the stuff you're teaching, it's so important to put into action. How do you do it?
So that's a good question. I guess my advice for putting it into action, and I have to be honest, I think some of it is not really conscious. I think a lot of it's actually subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
You find yourself, you saw someone once do this or that, and you might not even do it right away, but eventually you find yourself, taking what you learn and putting it into action. So my best advice is to sort of, if you hear something good, you could try it out yourself, but also a lot of it's just your sort of like attitude and the way your outlook. Sometimes that's what you get actually. So like a lot of times these teachers conferences, you might not get away so much practical, but you could come away with sort of okay, but how do they look at it? What's their view on education and approaching students? And then you kind of think, you absorb it, especially if you like the message, you can just try to focus on it, and sometimes it's almost comes automatic, sometimes not automatic, sometimes automatically it starts following through, and really watching other educators. I've actually found after having more experience teaching, I actually gained more from watching other educators than I think when I first started.
Wow.
Like I can see what they're doing.
Right.
That's for sure.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
you probably learn a lot from the kids directly too, in the classroom, right? And interacting with them.
Absolutely. So that's actually I remember one teacher conference I went to. I mean, one thing I just gained from it was that like I don't know if it's always true, but he said like a lot of times when teachers or parents try to apply something to a student, student, they often get it wrong, and often the way to actually get to the right solution is to actually ask the student, with all these.
That would help.
Like, let's ask the child what's going on, what's wrong, and then you can often get a more accurate idea of, okay, now that I understand what's wrong, let me implement a solution.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious how you're going to answer this one. How can we help build a proper Torah foundation for our students?
So I thought about this one too, and I thought the way I viewed this question was more as like a model of a school. So this is, for me, as I had mentioned, I had taught at Kulanu, and I really enjoyed working there. And I think and I noticed like a lot of the teachers also like really enjoyed working there, and like some even said this is the place they start work. And what I liked about that school was I felt that they worked together almost as a family. And I remember one person who assisted there said like this was the first school he was at where he had a suggestion for a student, and like and he was talking to, let's say, a supervisor, and the supervisor said, go try it.
Wow.
Like they were looking for ideas and it doesn't matter who it came from. And so like you felt like you were really working as a team to help each student there. And so I feel like if like in terms of let's say you were at a school, sort of, I feel my personal opinion is that the way the teachers and the staff and the principals and everybody interact with each other eventually affects how they interact with the students too, and it filters down.
So true.
And
Definitely.
so like they have a really good relationship among, and I'm talking not whether it's secular, religious, it doesn't matter. It could be the gym teacher, it could even be it could be the custodian. It doesn't really matter. If everybody's there working as a team to educate, and everybody gets along, and everybody works with Middot towards each other, that translates I think it's almost going to automatically translate to the students and how you interact with the students. And Mela, you're going to come up with a successful teaching result. So that's I think that would be my model. Let's say in a religious school, besides the education, which is very important, we want to make sure the students have good midos, they treat each other with respect. These are values we're giving out, values we're giving over. They have a relationship with God. They're interested. And I really feel like if the whole staff is working as a team for that goal, and regardless of your position there, if you're all working for the needs of the students together, then I really feel you'll have a successful product. You'll be successful, and the students will be successful.
Right. So with all this change, in the world today, what does successful Jewish education in the future look like to you? I mean, I'm just curious. Like, do you think the way we had it, before the pandemic and the classroom, like, is that the best? Is that the best we can do, or what do you think it's going to look like?
So, I mean, I do feel the face-to-face is the ideal. Like, I don't think there are some benefits over the computer, but I think they're just heavily outweighed by being person-to-person relationships in the classroom. I just can't imagine replacing that. I don't think
so. So we're not going to get replaced by artificial intelligence, right?
No. Artificial intelligence will help us. Even before this, we were using technology in the classroom. Smart boards, which is fine, great. It enhances, but it's not a replacement.
Right. Because if we put a robot in there as the teacher, then it'll just make the kids more like robots.
Yes.
Probably. And then it's hard to teach those Middot in the same way, right? The robots can't feel, they don't have the emotion or the empathy or
exactly.
But like they can be very well behaved, though.
Yes. Yeah, just everything, or even your excitement for whatever you're teaching,
Right. Definitely. You need to transfer that, right, to your students, and then it helps them to, if they see you're interested and you have a passion for it, then most likely they're going to be more interested.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely.
I like what you said before also about how in the former school where you worked, you felt that there was really this community and that every single staff person, every educator, whomever, you guys treated each other with respect and listened to each other. And then you felt that it was, I'm not sure if it was easier or if it was, you were more able to transfer that to the children or your students because there was already that feel.
Right. I mean, I feel it automatically gets transferred.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's one of those things that we probably could do a better job of too in our schools, is just making sure that we're as educators, we're transferring that and making sure that everyone knows that they have a place and they feel welcome and accepted. And
yeah, yes.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to add?
So I think, is there anything else I'd like to add? If there's anything I'd like to sort of part with. My parting thought would just be that to realize, we're like that we're here for the students. We can never lose focus of that. We always have to do whatever is best for the students, and that really should be our focus. And whatever we can do that will make school more meaningful for the students, and since we're talking about religious schools, have them feel more of a connection to Hashem, and to be happy to come to school, happy to learn Torah and mitzvahs, and anything that we can do that enhances that's something that we should be doing.
Yeah, I like
wow.
that. Yeah.
Well, Rabbi Lewin, it was an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you.
And like you said, the students need good role models. So, in a couple weeks when this goes online, don't blame us if your email and your phone's blowing up with a request to be your student.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, I might have to try to get you back out here to Harrisburg.
All right.
All right. Take care. All the best.
Have a great week and stay safe. And we're looking forward to talking to you soon and seeing where this goes.
Yeah, and Hanukkah Sameach.
You too. Hanukkah Sameach.
All right. Take care.
Bye.